Okay, so the bell.
Very good.
I can stand here all day pulling the bell. Yeah. Thanks, Dan. All right, so welcome to Access. Today we're in Dan Welden's wonderful home in Noyak, on a beautiful fall day in late October 2015. And Dan is a world-renowned printmaker and innovator of methods of turning out prints. And he's likely to show up in China and in Italy at Florence and all over the southwest of the United States teaching. He's a very renowned teacher and most of all to me an old friend. We've known each other for 20 years and we've met in this house with a men's group we've been in. So Dan, thanks for having me. It's been a while since I've been here. And
thank you too, Richard. This is quite the honor to be again with you.
Well, I'm the honored one. But anyway, well, tell me, where have you been in the last year, Dan? What have you been doing?
Well, this year's been mostly domestic, where other years have been more international. Although I'll be taking off for Peru in January, February, to do a little thing down in Lima.
Well, what is this little thing?
Well, I'll be taking actually invited artists will be coming along with me to Lima to work in a studio down there. And then for inspiration before this workshop, we're going to probably take a little trip to Machu Picchu.
Oh.
So that, of course, it's a very inspiring place for all kinds of people.
I bet. Well, you also go to China. You go to Guanlan,
Yeah.
which is an international center for printmaking. Tell me what that is.
Guanlan is actually the largest printmaking center in the world. It's about 2 hours from Hong Kong, and invited artists go there and they do their own work. It's not a teaching situation. It's something where artists participate and the expenses are all taken care of by the Chinese government. And I go there and produce a lot of work because there's not much else to do there. It's really a beautiful location. It has a nice lotus pond. And it's in the middle of a place that's industrial, so there's not much on the outside. But it is a gorgeous facility. It has about 150 employees, all dedicated to the art of the print.
The art of the print, that fascinates me. How does China come to have what amounts to a world center for prints, for printmaking? It goes way back, right?
Yeah, China is steeped in printmaking because it goes way back, even before Europe. In fact, paper was invented in China.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so it really has this wonderful history of trying to do things that are really quality oriented, as opposed to what we think of many products from China. I mean, their art is, when it's done in a fine art sense, on an international basis like this, people come from all over the world, and they try to produce works representative of their own style and their own ability.
And you go there and you teach and you're free to do your own work?
It's not a teaching.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's in fact, it's a difficult thing for me because it's part of my personality to try to teach sometimes, and other people want to know what I'm doing because I'm doing something that's different than what they do, and so I do put my 2 cents in whenever I can.
Well, just how is your work different from what they do?
Well, it's really more of the technique that I use, and well, I shouldn't say just the technique. I mean, it's Western in style as opposed to what the Chinese do in terms of much more traditional work. Their work is more traditional in the sense of woodcut is really their expertise, and they are amazing at what they can do with a knife and a chisel, carving into wood, and then they print those wood blocks. Whereas we as Westerners tended to use much more contemporary techniques like etching, which has got more of a European base, and then lithography, and then the process that I do, which is unheard of in China until You know, it was, until I
The
brought it.
process that you do.
Yes.
Tell me about
Well,
that.
that's the process that I coined the name solar plate.
Right.
And solar plate is a material that's made out of steel and light sensitized polymer. And that polymer surface, when
So everybody knows what is polymer.
it's a plastic
Uh-huh.
that becomes hardened in the sun.
Uh-huh.
And this plastic material, when exposed to UV light or the sun, becomes hardened except for where the sun doesn't hit it or where the UV is blocked out. And that's done in the form of art. You can paint right on there, or you can take a photograph and put it in a transparency fashion right on top of that plate and then expose it. And once it's exposed, then it's developed. It's processed with water. Ordinary tap water, you pour it on there and take a little brush, and the water actually etches the plate.
Uh-huh. Right. And when you go to Florence, how is that different in terms of what you do there?
Well, Florence was a teaching situation. That was it was my own school, so to say, and I would use it every August for 10 years. I had different workshops going on. I directed the school and had painters and other printmakers and book artists and photographers and collage artists, and we had different programs that we taught there, and I of course taught the printmaking.
Could you show us samples of the different work? You have
Sure.
any handy?
Yeah, I could show examples.
Yeah, all right. Can we do that?
Sure.
No? Yeah. So can we do that now? Yeah.
Okay, I have to get that set up.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. This is great.
All right, so
Yeah.
we can take a little
Yeah.
pause on that and get.
Yeah.
So we're going to need. Okay. All right. We'll just bring it over here.
Okay. That looks interesting. I don't want to step in any of that.
What I'll do is, we'll just hold these up.
Yeah.
I'll just.
Yeah. Well, then maybe if it's hard for you, I'll just lean forward with this.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Will this
well,
work?
I want to be sure to hear every word.
Okay.
So I'll be sure it's close to your mouth. So
Okay.
I'll have to ask for repeats from time to time, but I don't want to interrupt your flow. Alston Beach. Well, that sounds like England.
I have no idea. It was a gift. Okay, shall we resume?
Ready? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, tell us what that is.
So this is a solar plate print that it's an etching, and it's done black and white. And then originally, then I took some color with colored pencil and put it into it.
Yeah, just turn it so I can see it too. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just.
Okay. Now you did this.
Yes.
When?
I don't remember.
You did too many.
I have to check the date.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
That's a difficult question, you know.
No, that's all right. Don't worry about that.
08.
08, How long have you been doing this? Since 1970s,
Since,
right? That's what the internet says.
Well, I guess that, yeah, this process, but of course
yeah.
I was doing others. I was painting before that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well, we'll go back and talk about that.
this was inspired by the idea of going to Iceland. I'm sorry, the idea of going to Antarctica
Oh,
because of the ice.
uh-huh.
And so it was intentionally done with very cool colors and things like that.
To me, it has the feeling of ice. That's interesting.
Well, that was the idea,
Yeah.
but I never got the grant to go there. I was trying for a National Science Foundation grant,
Oh,
so maybe some other year I'll do it again.
yeah.
And my work deals primarily with various elements trying to be connected to each other. So there's always a linear pattern that tends to go on between other portions of it. So
Meaning, say that again now.
So every work has linear qualities. In other words, sometimes they're delicate lines that are connecting from one place to another.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're much more apparent, the line patterns, but to me they tend to join things and connect, and almost like bridges.
Yeah, they're beautiful, Dan.
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. Did you do most of those here?
Most of these were done here.
Yeah.
This one I did in Denver, so
Uh-huh.
it has a little bit of a different feeling. I do things in different locations.
Right. Right.
I happen to have this other piece of work, which was shown to a group of students from high school, because when high school or young students, they see this very abstract work and they sort of tilt their heads with, they don't get it, which is natural because I didn't understand abstract work either when I was in high school. And they say, well, do you know how to draw? And I said, well, I pull out something that I did when I was about their age, and I show them this little architectural piece that was done. This is where I studied in the city of Munich, and this was a stone lithograph, and that was.
I have a vague recollection. I was in Munich during the war.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
oh my. Yeah. Well, you see now, I'm literal too because this stops me. But those are just gorgeous, Dan. I really think they are.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Well, okay. Now, tell us about solar. You invented solar plate.
I did.
Which we started talking about before because there's so much toxicity in the background in printmaking. Was nothing really seriously done about that before the solar plate? Well, give us a story of the toxic materials and what you've done.
Well, it's a very good question because the serious things that were happening were people were getting very sick and dying, and left and right, and people would develop all kinds of cancers and brain situations that were involving the chemicals that printmakers use, and that involves acids and solvents and all kinds of grounds that are carcinogenic. And as a result of that, it happened to be fortuitous in timing because, although I was always conscious of health and safety and the environment, and I did composting when I was 5 years old.
Really?
And because that's the way I grew up, and we didn't waste materials, we used it and recycled whenever possible. So my mind was always in the idea of doing things properly and safely, and I guess that's why I can stand around and talk about it, because many of my colleagues are no longer around. And
as a result of the toxicity?
As a direct result of some of these toxic things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Rembrandt did it, right?
Rembrandt was a survivor. He actually lived quite long, but
yeah.
And he used his Dutch mordant, and but
he
used acids, and he managed to survive, as well as Albrecht Dürer and Goya. These old guys, they did it. But there were other people that didn't last that long, and whether they were from toxins or the combination of. Sometimes artists get involved with alcohol, for instance, or drugs, and those elements combined with the solvents, they really play a heavy number on the body.
Okay, so this concerns you. You had sort of an upbringing involving the environment and non-toxicity. So what happened? How did you start? What steps did you take? And give us the story.
Well, that's a good question. My professor in Munich in 1969-70, he was this wonderful man but he used to like to tease me. He would dangle the carrot in front of me, and then I would go for it. He wouldn't tell me. He wouldn't spoon feed me. He would give me a little bit of information and have me try to figure things out. So he gave me the gift of bringing the curious mind to fruition. So he gave me a material. He said, here, try this. And it happened to be one of these polymer plates. And so I tried it. At first I wasn't particularly happy with the results because it was just, okay.
It was just...
It wasn't really anything that I gravitated towards right away because I was pretty steeped in stone lithography and I liked that much more than anything. But little by little I saw the potential. It had great potential. I said, gee, this could do so much. And then when I returned to the United States in 1971, I started exploring the technique more. And I found out, gee, I can do this, this, and this, and all kinds of results. And I invited my friends to participate with the product, and I said, okay. And then I gave it the name solar plate because of using the sun.
Which is trademark, right?
It became known.
Uh-huh. And what exactly, or not necessarily, tell us generally what you did to make this, to bring this to fruition, this development.
Well, that was it started out with doing my own work, and then little by little I would invite other friends of mine. Probably the most influential and important person that supported what I was doing was Eric Fischel. Eric Fischel, being local, wanted to work on this material and in conjunction with the project with the Smithsonian publication called American Art. And they wrote an article about his work and a series of prints that we did in collaboration with each other. And it was a really fine job that he did on that. And it had, I mean, the works were used in the publication, and then later on, some of the prints were exhibited at the Metropolitan Museum, so in New York, and that was it was really quite a nice beginning for. And this took place in 1992. Although I had done it before, it started getting more validity once someone of Eric's stature started using it.
Right. Well, now this is a very unusual house here. I mean, and we're going to show more pictures. You built this obviously with both living and work in mind.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. And what are your plans? It seems every time I'm here, you're adding something new.
That's true.
I mean, whether it's shovels for friends, for other artists who've died, or whatever it is, there's always something bubbling with you. So where are you going? Where were you headed? Where are you going now?
Well, that's sort of the excitement of living and the excitement of life, and it's the constant thinking of new things, and I don't know where they come from. I have no idea. It's just like things just happen in a beautiful way. And yes, shovels. It started because I had shovels that were no good.
May I just interrupt there? Outside Dan's house, he had some old shovels leaning against the fence, which he discovered, which found sort of walking around this area, and he's using them as memorials. So that's just something about Dan and what he does. Okay, go ahead.
Well, well, these shovels are all going to be representative of the artists, my friends, who passed. And there are many, and as we get older, naturally, it seems to be, the numbers keep increasing. I have to try to get enough shovels to balance out the numbers, so I hope I have.
Do you have to find them, or can people contribute?
Well, no, I've been finding them. I find them in yard sales, and because what happens is people have no use for them. You can buy a new handle for a shovel, but the new handle costs more than a whole new shovel. So it doesn't make sense to most people to keep a shovel around. So it's a silly little thing.
You just said something that fascinates me. You said you never know where it's coming from.
Yes.
Say you're doing that print. You're making, say, one of those prints down there. You must encounter problems that make you stop the point. I'm assuming.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. I mean, as I do when I write. Mm-hmm. Now, do you ever? What happens? You ever find yourself sitting up in bed in the middle of the night and saying, Eureka! You know, I found a solution to a challenge that has been holding me up. Because I find that with words sometimes.
Well,
The right adjective, for example.
yes, I understand the question. I find that it's not something that occurs in my mind. In other words, the idea does not come through as in a eureka form. It happens while I'm working, during the act of working, during the exploration, during that journey of doing is when all of a sudden something will go off. But usually I can almost say there's a curve of excitement and enthusiasm when I'm working, that it goes up, 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 up. And then sometimes it levels off, and then sometimes it goes down. That curve goes downhill because it's not going anywhere. The work is just it's not resonating with me. And at that point, it's a question of, gee, do I keep on going with this, or what do I do? Sometimes it's impractical to keep going. Sometimes I say, oh, that's the end of it. I'll start a new piece or work on a piece that, sometimes I have a half a dozen works going on at the same time. So I don't always know how it's going to evolve.
People are very interested in prices. Now, the art world, the painting world, seems to have gone crazy in how much some paintings are worth. How are prints doing commercially? Have they had a boom as well, or?
Well, I think I'm not really one to talk too much about pricing as much as the gallery people. They're the ones that are much more informed of what prices are and what they bring. I honestly don't pay as much attention as probably I should. I mean,
not necessarily.
Well,
What should you? Yeah.
It's not what
You're happy with what
well,
you do.
yeah, it's not really why I do work. I don't do work to sell. It sells, but it's not something that is a prime motivation.
Yeah, I know that. It's just something I thought that people might find interesting. Okay. When did printmaking start? I was doing research for this. I thought that the first printmaking was probably people in caves making prints against the walls. Is that how you see it, or is that a little romantic?
Well, it's true. It's what happened. I mean, people made impressions. I mean, they started by putting their hands up against the wall and then putting pigment around their own hands, and that was a form of making impression. But even before that, people might have found out the joy of making impressions by walking in the snow or walking in it and seeing their own footprints. You know, so that was printmaking in its own way. Of course, it wasn't done to make something beautiful as well as much as something with an intent. I mean, there's two sides to that. The cave works, the cave paintings, where people say, well, it was purposeful, it was intentional, it was utilitarian because it involved dealing with the hunt. But the art people, we believe that, yes, it could have been done for that reason, but it's the beauty in the work that is why it's called art, as opposed to just done. And that's why those cave paintings have beauty to them, because the people who did them took care. They were concerned, and it was truly art.
And that's what is your intent when you start with the work? I mean, well, let me put it this way: do you always have a clear intent of what you want to do, more or less clear intent of what you want to do?
No.
Or, no.
No. In fact,
it just comes up.
I don't have something in mind to make it look like something. I don't have a finished idea in mind when I start. It's a journey where I don't really know where it's going to go, and that particular form of or way of working allows me a sense of freedom, where if I was restricted to a subject matter or to something else, let's say a commission for somebody that wanted me to do a red barn and a sunset. You know, it's what they have in mind rather than what I have in mind. So I don't have things in mind when I do it. When I do my art, it just comes out of me in some sort of way that I don't know when I start what it's going to look like when it ends.
Right. Well, what are you doing this week? What have you been doing this week?
Well, I just did a number of works up in Connecticut because one of them is going to be going back to Connecticut to the Center of Contemporary Printmaking for an auction for a fundraiser. So I did this large piece. I'm happy to show it to you.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, it was a large piece that I wound up doing a number of works in Connecticut, and then they chose the one that they would like to auction off.
Is that handy?
Yeah, it is handy.
Let's have a look.
So this is the work that was just completed. And it started out as a print, and then I wasn't happy with it. So what I do, I create a hybrid work. In other words, it's a print plus painting plus drawing, or whatever it's going to take to make it a finished piece. So normally we'd have one color through the press, but as you can see, with all these many colors on top of it, they were all painted into it. So that's the painter in me that's sort of coming out.
You must enjoy that.
Or
is it a nuisance?
No, that I always enjoy doing the work, especially rescuing something that doesn't make me happy immediately. And by rescuing it is saving that piece of paper and creating something to satisfy me. So it could be colored pencils, it could be crayons, it could be paint, it could be a knife, whatever it's going to take to...
Have you ever been in any very long rescues?
Oh, some of them, yes. And then
you put them aside?
And I put them aside, and then I put them in a drawer, and I call them workovers. And sometimes the amount of work is too much. It's overkill, and then it bites the dust. Then it goes in the wood stove.
Are you pretty good knowing when to stop yourself and leave it and read or see some friends? Or
I don't know that I'm pretty good at anything.
Get a snack?
Well, I don't know that I'm pretty good at anything. I know that I just try, and then I put it aside, and then sometimes it talks to me, and it gives me a good feeling that, okay, that works. And other times, well, it doesn't quite make it.
Right. Okay. Would it be okay to show us your house?
Sure.
Start showing your house now?
Sure, absolutely.
And we may run over into another program. So, by the way, Bill Alvis is filming that. We're on now. So Bill Alvis has put this job together here and is facing us here with the camera and helping direct the operation. So maybe later Bill can get in front of the camera. We can have a look at him.
Bill has been a very dear friend for many years and is passionate about filmmaking.
I get that.
Yes,
I really get that.
Absolutely passionate.
Yeah.
You may see him down at the beach sometimes.
He's also, what's that?
You may see him at the beach sometimes with the sunset.
Yeah. He's also fun in a car. We can really have a great conversation.
Yeah.
And we're up close so I can hear everything.
That's good.
Yeah, okay. Well, let us know when you're ready, Bill, and we'll start.